Hello and welcome to TrailSync. TrailSync is an application to help coordinate group activities outside, particularly activities like hiking, backpacking, canoeing, hunting, where you're really trying to get a group of people together and coordinate those activities together. In this video, we're going to go through a walkthrough of the application and give you an overview of TrailSync itself, how to use it, and what its capabilities are. So let's start off. You've already downloaded the app on iPhone or an Android phone. First thing you need to do is to create an account. And so what we're going to do here is create an account. The name is Hunter. We're going to use my dog's name at the moment. Put in a password, confirm the password. Just standard starting off an account creation. Agree to the terms of service and the privacy policy, and there you have an account created. The main screen shows you the upcoming trips that you have, and we're going to focus initially on the profile and setting up a profile. So first thing we can do is add a profile picture, nice picture of Hunter there, and then we can go through and set how experienced a hiker he is, what his fitness level is, what certifications he has for things like wilderness first aid. Also, we can set some dietary restrictions and medical notes. And this section is really to share with your fellow hikers so that in the event of emergency, they've got information that might be very relevant in helping you out. And so in this instance, we'll say that Hunter's got a peanut allergy, but there's an EpiPen in his backpack. We then have standard emergency contact information, a contact phone number, and we can go off and save those changes. So at this point, we've successfully set up Hunter's profile, and we've given him that little bit of information that's going to be shared with other hikers. And it's important to note that that information is only shared with the hikers that you participate with. And so it's not shared anywhere else. Nobody can see that publicly. When you create a trip and you're invited to be a participant in that trip, then that's where folks on that trip can see that information. So now that we've got Hunter's profile set up, let's have a quick look around the settings screen. First thing you'll see is we've got imperial and metric units, and so this is so that we can operate, of course, in the US and outside of the US with automatic conversions between miles, kilometers, etc. We currently have two data providers that you can flip between. One is Open Meteo and the other is Open Weather. I think Open Meteo is a better one that actually gives you 16 days forecast in a lot more detail, but check both of those out. And then we have the standard terms and conditions and the privacy policy as well. Important again to note that we don't store any information and share it outside of TrailSync. That is all information that you provide. It's decided whether you want to share it or not, and then you can of course delete your account and that'll delete all the information. Okay, so back to the main application. The home screen shows all the upcoming trips that you may have. The trip screen is the list of all the trips, including those that you've completed. And then we have the manage screen. And this is where you set up your own gear and your own meal libraries that you can then use on trips. And so this has got several sections. The first is the gear library. The gear library is where you can build your own personal gear. And that is your camping gear or your hiking gear, your kayaking gear, etc. A gear template groups gear together so that you can use that as a single template. For example, my overnight backpacking gear or my day trip gear. Then we have a meal library. The meal library is a set of meals that you've got that you can then apply to a trip. And then finally, we have the ability to import gear from a CSV file. And so this is really great if you've already got gear in something like LidaPack, and then you want to just pull that into TrailSync so that you can quickly access it. So let's take a look at the gear library. This is where you build up your own gear. You can either add gear from the library that we provide. There's about 250 different gear elements in here, standard things like backpacks, tents, sleeping bags, etc. You can filter those so you can find them as quickly as possible. And so then you can add those and start building your gear list up that way. You can also add your gear just by creating custom gear items. And so any item can be a custom gear item. maybe a backpack that you've already got that's not in the list that we have, and so you can add that. You can add the category for it so it's easy to find later on. You can add the weight, and the weight can be in pounds or in ounces if you're in the imperial system, and of course kilograms and grams if you're in the metric system. You can indicate what season that is good for, whether or not it's worn weight or not, so then we exclude it from weight calculations. And so typically things like clothes that you wear when you go hiking, you would exclude that from an overall weight calculation. Then we can add that, and that creates a personal gear item for you that then is in your own personal gear library. We can go back and we can edit that and delete that gear if necessary. And so this is really building up your own personal gear library that you've got for hiking. So let's take a quick look at gear templates. Gear templates are ways of gathering gear together so that you can apply them really easily to a trip. So for example, a day trip or an overnight or a multi-day trip can have all the gear that you need for that trip, and then you can add it to the trip all in one go. Creating templates, one of the easiest ways to do this is to import gear from a CSV. So if you have your gear in LidaPack, you can export it as a CSV and then import that into TrailSync. So we've got my LidaPack here, export. I've just imported that. It imports all 15 items in one go, puts them in the correct categories, and it's got all that information that is all ready for you, and then creates a template out of that. You can say whether you want to import that as a template or just import the individual gear items, and then that template's already created. You now see that there's a gear template. If you go into that, you can of course edit and add more gear to that template, or delete it or whatever, but now you've got a gear template that you can rename. We'll call that my overnight, and I'll use that later when I create an overnight trip. So let's look at the meal library. This is similar to the gear library, but now we're talking about meals, and so you can build up a set of meals that you've got. Again, we have a preset set of meals that you can filter from and select, and so these are typical freeze-dried meals, both breakfast, lunch, and dinner that you might find. You can also create custom meals for your favorite meals, and so in this instance we'll have Hunter's refried beans. You can put the recipe together. You can say whether or not it is a breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snack, the type of meal that it is. These just help you search for it later, the number of calories, the number of servings in that meal, the prep time, the weight of that. Importantly, you can put the recipe in here, and so you've got the instructions with you on trail. So easy way of just quickly capturing that recipe so that you don't forget that. And then you've got some standard dietary tags again. So when you're searching, you can find meals which are vegetarian or nut-free or whatever you're looking for. Okay, so let's end this first intro video here. It's given you an overview of how to set up TrailSync, how to create the account, log on, set up your profile, set up your gear library, set up your meal library. In the next intro video, we'll actually get into how to plan a trip and then how to go off and execute on that trip.